Gilmore from the DIS sales team. I want to thank you all for joining us for another Wednesday webinar. We know your time is valuable, especially on a week like this, so we do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to meet with us. Today's topic will be business overhead expense. The presentation will be given today by our Business Development Manager, Mr. Ben Coleman. Just to give you a little bit of background, Ben has been with DIS for 5 years. He started as a member of the sales team, and due to continued company growth, has moved on into the position of Business Development Manager. Just a couple of items before we start. We can't hear you, so if you do have questions, please type them into the box on the right side of the screen, and time permitting at the end of the presentation, we'll go ahead and try to answer those questions. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our Business Development Manager, Mr. Ben Coleman.
Hey, Andrew, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Folks, as Andrew said, welcome. Thanks for being with us today on a holiday week. Do my best to keep this presentation about 25 to 30 minutes, and that'll allow us to answer some questions at the end. As Andrew mentioned, today's topic, business overhead expense training, along with some sales ideas. We often talk a lot about individual DI, and we have some great webinars and articles on that. But today, let's key in on those business owners. And you can go after those prospects that do own their own company, and let's help them protect their business. So let's jump right into it today. Our topic is cash flow protection. Now, the cash flow protection is what is going to protect the business when the business owner becomes so sick or so injured that they can no longer work. So very similar to paycheck protection, where an individual protects their own paycheck. However, this is going to protect the business. So our agenda, what I want to do is talk about how common disability really is. Show you guys some stats. Let's mention exactly what a BOE insurance policy is. I want to show you the typical covered expenses. I have a nice chart that represents falling income plus rising expenses. We'll discuss negative alternatives to BOE protection, talk about some BOE product concepts and options. Who are your BOE prospects? What type of business owners? How big are the companies? We'll discuss that. And finally, I've got some sales ideas I'll wrap up with that I feel you can go out and take into the field today. And anytime you're meeting with somebody who's self-employed or owns their own business, a good way to get them interested in protecting their company. So starting off, folks, this is very important. I can't emphasize enough explaining the need for disability protection. It's more common than you think, and right here, the best way to do this, folks, is using statistics. And I've got 3 statistics that I'm showing on the screen right now. The first one's actually my favorite because you can have fun with it. It's a thought-provoking question. This is what I want you to do next time you're talking to anybody about paycheck protection or business overhead expense. Ask them if they know what the largest minority in the United States is today. And give them a second to think about it. The first thing that's probably going to pop in their mind is some type of race or ethnic group. But I want you to know, and I want you to tell your clients, that the largest minority in our country today, folks, is the disabled. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, over 51 million Americans are classified as being disabled. So have fun with that one. It's a good way to start that conversation and segue into disability insurance, paycheck protection, or business protection. Secondly, another good stat, a disabling injury occurs every 2 seconds. And finally, 3 in 10 workers entering the workforce today will become disabled before they retire. Now, we've got hundreds of these statistics, folks, and if you're interested in receiving a list of them, we have a great piece, which we call our DI Statistical Power Pack. So don't hesitate to email us or give me a call, today or in the future, and we can get that out to you. It's a nice one-page PDF. It's got about 15 to 20 stats just like these, including these 3 that you see on the screen. So order that DI Stat Pack next time you contact us. Okay, well, business overhead expense. What is a BOE insurance policy? Well, very simply put, the BOE insurance policy reimburses the business owner for expenses the business owner may have during a time of disability. So your expenses are still going to continue. And if you have a BOE policy, by showing receipts, the carrier, the policy that you have, will reimburse the business owner for those expenses, for those covered expenses. Now, that's the big question. I'm sure you're wondering, well, what does a BOE insurance policy cover? What are the covered expenses? Well, I'm going to show you right now, and I want to leave this on the screen for a minute so that you may jot this down, and so you know when you're discussing with your prospect, you can tell them exactly what would be covered. Heaven forbid they become disabled or they're too sick or too injured to go back to work. Take a look at these. You've got accounting services, auto insurance, auto loan interest, contract advertising, depreciation, your utilities such as electricity, water, phone, laundry, perhaps you're leasing equipment or you've got loans on equipment, legal fees, liability insurance, malpractice insurance, mortgage payments, rent, real estate taxes, and what I think is great is it covers salaried employees, folks, which is huge. So you're able to continue to pay anybody that's working for you if you go out on a disability claim. So these are your business overhead covered expenses that the carriers will reimburse you for as long as you can show receipt that you've paid these expenses while you're out on claim. Also, let me remind you too, folks, at the end of this presentation, we will actually send you a BOE article. So it will list these covered expenses again so that you can review it, or if you'd like, even bring this with you when you're discussing or when you're out there meeting with your clients and talking about business protection. So those are your covered expenses. Okay, a BOE insurance policy is typically quoted with a 30-day elimination period. Now, that's different than what we quote for individual DI. More often than not, you'll see a 90-day elimination period on the individual side. And so you might be questioning, well, why are we doing a 30-day on the BOE? Because cash flow is going to be immediately interrupted for a business. So we want to get the shortest elimination period available. There are other ones available. You could do a 60-day wait or a 90-day wait, but 30 is the most common, and that's typically what we sell and what we quote when BOE is requested. Benefit periods. There are also 3 types of benefit periods you can choose from. There's a 12-month benefit period, 18 months, and 24 months. The most common one we quote, 1 year. It's going to be less expensive than 18 months and 24 months, but also you got to think about this realistically as a business owner. If they're disabled and they don't return to work soon, what are they going to do with the business? They're going to have to make a decision. He or she will either need to sell the business or else, they're going to continue to lose their client base, which essentially is going to end up decreasing the value of the business. So that's why you won't see a BOE policy have a benefit period of longer than 2 years. If you're out for more than 2 years, you have a decision to make. You're either going to go back to work or you're going to sell your company. So just to kind of sum things up, 30-day is your most common elimination period, and your benefit period is typically 1 year. There are alternative options, but this is what we usually quote. Here's that chart I wanted to show you, folks. As I mentioned earlier, your business expenses are going to continue whether you're working or not. So in this easy, simple example, you've got somebody who's healthy and working, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, where they've got their typical business expenses, the company's doing well, they're making money, there's profit involved. Well, boom, all of a sudden a disability occurs. That day, starting that day where the business owner is not working, guess what? Those expenses aren't going to stop. He's still got bills he's got to pay. He still has suppliers he's got to pay, whatever it may be. Those expenses we just looked at a second ago, those aren't going to stop just because he gets disabled. Well, what else? Now what's going to happen? Well, if he's not working, chances are the company's going to start losing money. So there's going to come a time, there's going to be a point where profit soon becomes debt. I don't know how long out that may be. For some, it's going to be quicker than others, depending on how profitable and successful the business is. But why take that chance? Why would you risk that? And that's why if you had a BOE policy, 30-day elimination period, hopefully your company doesn't go into debt. Hopefully you don't have to close the doors to your company. We all know how proud business owners are, and they should be. They start a company from scratch. It's their baby. It's their golden goose. Why wouldn't they want to protect that? So this is, a real simple chart that just shows you, realistically what's going to happen when you're not working and if you become disabled. So how are you going to meet those expenses? Let's discuss cash flow crunch alternatives. Because those expenses are going to continue, what are your options? Well, as I mentioned, you can close your business. You can close it down. Well, what's going to happen then? You're going to lose your earnings. You're going to lose your customers. You no longer have any more employees. And ultimately, you lose the business entity. What about hiring a replacement? It's a viable option, but consider this when you're hiring a replacement. Sometimes that's going to be difficult to locate. Depends on what type of business you own. Maybe you're a doctor or a dentist. It may be tricky or difficult to find somebody that's going to come in and replace you. There's a lack of incentive for hiring a replacement. That's not a permanent position. Eventually, the client wants to return to work. Why would somebody just come take a job for 3 months? I know that's difficult to say, especially during times like these, folks, but I'm just kind of presenting the options of, why hiring a replacement may not be the best idea. Moving on, you may lose loyalty or relationship with your existing clients, your existing customers, if by hiring somebody that you don't have as close of a relationship as you did or the client did before they became disabled. And essentially, that could lose some net income. So those are, some alternatives because the expenses are going to continue. But this is all part of the reason why I feel it's so important to offer the BOE policy to any business owner out there or those who qualify for it. These are alternatives now to a BOE policy. What would a business owner do if they didn't have a BOE policy? Well, personal savings. That might be great if they've got a lot of money, a high net worth, but if they don't, if you're going to dip into your personal savings, you still got to think about everything else going on in their life, in their lifestyle. You got to consider your family's financial needs. How about going to the bank? Well, think about it. Is the bank really going to loan somebody who's disabled money to continue to pay for their expenses? And your suppliers, as I mentioned earlier. How long can you expect them to extend your line of credit? They need to get paid too. Cashing in your assets, definitely a possibility. Are you going to get the full value if you liquidate any of your assets? And that doesn't have to necessarily be your home, your car, things like that. But if you decide to start liquidating assets as part of your business, is that going to really reach the true value in which it's worth or even what you bought it for, more often than not, due to depreciation? Your partners, maybe you're not the only business owner in that business, but you've got co-owners, partners, shareholders. They may be able to shoulder the burden of you being out for a certain period of time, but how long can they shoulder that burden? How long can they continue to pay your portion of those overhead expenses? And so that's really, folks, why a business overhead expense policy is the viable solution to being able to protect your business, and that could ultimately save your business in the long run. Folks, what's another thing that's very important to business owners? No doubt it's taxation. A BOE policy, check this out, this is great. You can get tax-free benefits and deduct the premiums. And let me show you how it works right here. You've got a BOE policy. You can deduct that as a business expense. So the business is paying the insurance company. Well, you continue to pay the insurance company before you go out on claim. You're deducting those expenses. Again, boom, a disability occurs. You go out on claim. You start collecting those benefits. Well, off the bat, the benefits are going to be taxed because they are being deducted. But however, you're using the benefits to pay for business expenses. So you can actually deduct the actual business expenses because benefits are being used as deductible income. So that's very important when you're talking to business owners and you're trying to convince them, to buy this policy. they can deduct the premiums, and in the end, the benefits can be used as deductible income. So take a look at this chart and make sure you make that point when you're talking to your business owners. Okay, BOE, typical product concepts, non-can policy, which means the price and the provisions of the contract guaranteed to be renewed all the way out to age 65. If the business owner is still working at age 65 and he wants to keep the policy, it's conditionally renewable out to age 75. Typically, that depends on how many hours the client's working, and it's got to be more than 30 hours. So it's a non-can policy. Your definition of disability is that you cannot perform the main duties of your occupation or specialty, and you're under the care of your physician. Simple enough, just like an individual policy. Partial disability, folks, similar to the residual rider, the residual disability rider is available for many carriers. Partial is built in, but what this states is if you become disabled but you can still work part-time, you can collect part of the monthly benefit to help you pay for some of those expenses. And that's going to depend on a trigger, a loss of at least 20%, where you need that monthly benefit to help continue paying those monthly expenses. And as you can see here, that's built in. It's payable at 50% of the benefit for up to 3 to 6 months. Carryover provisions, folks. This is great. This is another great asset to this policy. It's an accumulation benefit. Accumulation benefit where unused benefit amounts can carry over into later months. The best way to think about this is rollover minutes with your cell phone. If you don't use all your minutes one month, it carries over to the next month. Now that's going to be the same with a BOE policy, and that's fantastic because, as you know, sometimes business owners, their bills aren't necessarily always paid monthly. Sometimes you write a check at the beginning of the year or 1 month out of the year to pay for, your malpractice insurance, whatever it may be. Well, obviously that month you're going to have higher monthly expenses rather than other months which may be lower. So whatever is unused from a previous month, that gets carried over, and when you have those months that exceed your normal monthly benefit, you can dip into it and use whatever you need. So that's great. Another cool thing about a BOE policy is you can exchange it for a DI policy prior to age 60. So let's say the business owner sells his company, wants to go back and be a W-2 employee, do something else. They can convert that into a DI policy. And obviously that's going to be subject to the DI issue limits. But it's a nice product concept that comes with the product. Future purchase option, folks, if you're familiar with the FPO, very similar to individual disability insurance. If your business expenses continue to increase over time, and they might if your company's growing and you're expanding and you're hiring new people, you want to be able to protect that, and you want to make sure if you do go out on claim, you're able to cover all those expenses. Well, FPO rider will allow you to purchase additional monthly benefit, additional insurance, without having to go back through medical underwriting. That's the key point right there. That's huge. All they want to know, they want to just make sure you can verify those business expenses. That's all they're going to ask anytime you issue or you exercise from your FPO amount on your policy. So if your clients are young enough, folks, and it's usually age 50 and younger, depending on the carrier, I would always recommend to put this rider on a policy. Something I haven't even touched on yet, folks, are the issue limits. How much could somebody get on a monthly basis? Well, it depends on the carrier and occupation, but I can tell you right now there's carriers that we represent that will issue up to $50,000 per month. $50,000. So more often than not, that's going to be enough to cover all those monthly expenses. If for some reason it's not, I'm sure some of you are aware we also work with Lloyd's of London where we can supplement on top of that $50,000. All we need to do is make sure the business owner provides us the verification stating that they need, X amount of dollars. Moving along, another rider that you may see on some BOE policies is called a professional replacement expense. And what this does, it's almost like a key person rider. And it basically is actually hiring a replacement. I know we talked about that earlier, but this rider will be on top of your monthly benefit, and it will allow you to pay somebody else to come in and do what you were doing on top of your other monthly benefit that's going to be used for your other expenses. You'll see this on, I think the carrier that offers this right now out there is Union Central. And again, what it's doing is it's paying the salary of a person employed to perform the insured's duties up to 50% of what that base benefit is. So if you have a $10,000 monthly benefit, with this rider, you can get an additional $5,000 just to hire a replacement. So that's good to know. That is included in many contracts, but as I mentioned, it's an additional rider with some, such as Union Central. Your target market, folks, who should you go after for BOE? Well, in my opinion, any business owner, if they qualify for it, they should have protection. Now, what do I mean by do they qualify? Folks, if your prospect or business owner has more than 10 employees, typically a traditional carrier will not look at it. And you might be asking, well, why is that? And I can tell you right now, they feel like that even if the owner becomes disabled and can't work, somebody else in that company is going to be able to step in and take over. You know, the company is not going to go under if they've got 20 employees, 30 employees, whatever it may be. There should be somebody on that staff that can do it. Well, I know that's not always the case, folks, and a perfect example of that is a doctor. A doctor might have his own practice, his own company, and maybe he does for some reason have 10, 12 employees. That's an exception, because if he were to become disabled, you know, he would need to take that money to hire a replacement rather than just having his office manager step in that's obviously not an MD and can't perform his duties. So just a good rule of thumb, keep in mind, folks, your business owners that have less than 10 employees, usually no problem getting any type of BOE coverage. If they are more than 10, it depends on the situation, but we sometimes are able to get you something with the traditional. If not, we can go to Lloyd's. So anyways, going back to your target markets, folks, obviously your professional groups. You got your docs, your dentists, attorneys, accountants, engineers, and so on and so forth. As I mentioned, there is often a maximum number of principals allowed to be actively participating in the business. Other principals of closely held businesses and owners of small businesses, less than 10 employees, that's important. And then finally, your individuals who own a firm, which really depends on their ability to generate income and pay the bills. So almost anyone, folks, is going to be a prospect. And finally, and this is a great stat too, I should have mentioned this earlier, I'm glad it popped up. Did you know of the almost 6 million small business owners in the country today, there's only 23% of them have any form of disability coverage? And I'm not just talking about business overhead expense. Only 23% are either protecting their own paycheck and or their business. So it's a very underserved market, unsaturated. I highly recommend you going after the business owners. Now let me jump into some sales ideas, and I'll try to wrap it up, folks. I know we're getting close to the 30-minute mark. This is typically how an illustration comes back to you. In this example, this is one of the carriers we represent. This is standard. As you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, I guess let me back up for a second. Folks, this sales idea is going to help you overcome price objections and help you to sell more BOE, but you can also use this when you're selling individual DI or life insurance. Whatever you're selling, I want you to take this approach. And I want you to present it in a manner that's going to reflect the true value of this contract. When you get a rate sheet like this, you're seeing a monthly benefit, in this case $10,000, and an annual premium. That's the wrong way to present it. We're showing the lowest benefit amount at the highest premium, $10,000 a month for $1,752. Let's show the true value of what this contract would be worth. And it's very simple. All you got to do is take out your calculator, do some simple math. It's a $10,000 monthly benefit. If you can see on the left-hand side of your screen here, folks, we did a 1-year benefit period on this BOE. So do your math. 10,000 times 12 months, that's $120,000 of tax-free benefit that the business owner can potentially use. Well, take that one step further. You know how we were looking at the annual premium? Why not break it down on a daily cost basis? Divide that by 365 days for $4.80 per day, which can be deducted. you are now going to have $120,000 that you can use. God forbid you go out on claim because you cannot work due to sickness or injury. So this is just a simple sales idea, folks. And I would take my red Sharpie, my pen, whatever it is, and cross out the 10,000 and write 120,000 across this, cross out the annual, and break it down on a daily cost basis. That's something simple that, folks, you can do on no matter what you're selling. Life insurance, I don't care what it is, show the highest value at the lowest denomination of cost. Here's a classified sales idea. You know, you might be thinking, okay, so far I like what I'm seeing. I agree that business owner protection is important. Well, how do I prospect? How do I get in front of a business owner? Well, try this, folks. Next time, this Sunday, grab this Sunday's paper, go on the internet, go to Craigslist, and I want you to pick up the classified ads section of your local paper. Go there, look for businesses that are for sale, and look for a business that's for sale due to health reasons. Another way you can do this is by just contacting a business broker, finding out who's selling their business and why they're selling their business. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy this business. I got a better idea for you. I want you to obtain the address and drive to these locations of the business that's for sale. Make note of the neighboring businesses, the same ones that are next to the businesses in the strip mall or just down the road or whatever it is. Why do I want you to do that? Here's the reason. I want you to contact these neighbors. More often than not, the neighbors in that strip mall or just down the street from that business that's for sale, they're going to know why he or she is selling their company. You know, the business community is a very tight-knit community, especially if you are in a strip mall. You know, you're going to know your neighbors. And so if something were to happen that they're going to close shop, you know they're going to tell their surrounding friends and neighbors. Now, here's where it comes in where you can ask the question. I want you to now ask that business neighbor if he or she has business interruption protection. And you can explain it to them. What is it? Well, it's going to pay for their ongoing expenses if they were to become sick or hurt and unable to return to work, just like what happened to their neighbor. Ask them, are they protected? Or you can extend that, or if they were not able to return to work, would their current coverage pay for their ongoing overhead expenses? You know, what are they currently doing to protect themselves if they became sick or injured? Okay, well, as I mentioned, very often these neighbors are going to know what's going on. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask to have permission to return with a no obligation quote. So you can come back to DIS or wherever and get a business overhead expense quote illustrating how they can be protected if they become sick or hurt. Simple, easy, quick questions, folks. And as I'm sure most of you know, we just need their date of birth, their job duties, tobacco, non-tobacco, and the most important question, how much are their monthly overhead expenses? Come back to DIS. Well, first off, thank them for their time. Make an appointment to return and show them the quote. So get your illustrations, go back, present the quote, and more importantly, make sure you have an application with you too. Because hopefully when you show them the illustrations, they're going to understand the importance, and they're going to say, you know what, I'm ready, let's do it, give me the app, let's get this thing moving. So when you return to meet your client, make sure that you express these things. As I mentioned, that sales idea, the cost in a daily cost, and the benefit in terms of the full payout over that benefit period. Take out your calculator, do some quick math. Also, and this is good for you as an agent, it's going to allow you to talk about other insurances. Be prepared to talk about life insurance, health insurance. How about individual DI? So this is another great sales idea, folks, all by just looking in your paper. The newspaper classified ads, great way to generate insurance leads. Look for the business that's for sale due to health reasons. And whenever you sell BOE, make sure, as I mentioned again, show the cost as a daily cost. The benefit is the full aggregate benefit. And remember, this is going to be good for you to talk about other types of insurance sales. All right, folks, getting ready to wrap things up. Let me wrap it up again with statistics because, folks, it's a needs-based sell, insurances, especially paycheck protection and business interruption protection. you got to explain to them the risk. And again, we do it with stats. So at age 32, the chance of being disabled for 90 days is 6.5 times greater than the chance of death. And 1 in 6 families, or 17%, will experience a disability in their lifetime. So to sum things up, folks, without a business protection solution, a business owner could ultimately be forced to lose their business. Again, let's get that stat pack. Give us a call, and we'll provide you with all of those statistics. Folks, that was good. Hopefully you learned a lot, and hopefully you can take some of that information that I gave and use it when you're out there talking to your prospects, especially your business owners. Here's a snapshot of our website. I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's very user-friendly, specifically for the agents. You can submit quotes online. You can get more sales ideas. We have articles. You can always register for our Wednesday webinars, as you can see right there on the right-hand side of your screen. And you can actually, once you have applications in-house with us, you can do everything online, folks. You can check the status, see what cases have been paid, see what you've quoted. Check out the website if you're out there surfing the internet today. And again, don't hesitate to give us a call. You can see the 800 number right there. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew to see if he wants to add anything, and I'm going to check to see if there are any questions. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that my name is Andrew. I work in the sales department. There's a few of us always standing by, so if you have any questions on any of the cases that you're working on, please feel free to give us a call. We have a wealth of knowledge. A few of us have been working in the disability world for several years. We can definitely give you some good input. Just want to also let you know that we have a fully staffed underwriting department that works with us. So they'll be able to help you out with any of the applications or the contracting paperwork that you're working on. Also, I'll let you know that we'll be making this presentation available to you guys via email later on today. So if you want to go over any of the points that we went over, we'll go ahead and email that to you. And then again, with the sales department, we stand by our 24-hour turnaround for quotes. So not only will we get the quotes out to you in a timely manner, I will actually follow up and give you a call. So if you want to go over the quotes with me, I'd be happy to do so. I think that's pretty much it on my end. I thank you very much for joining us, especially on this holiday week. Please join us next Wednesday for our DIS crash course, which is a very popular presentation.
Yeah, good point, Andrew. Next week's great too, folks. It's the DI crash course. It's a little DI 101 where we can go over your typical policy provisions, riders that are added, kind of decipher, demystify, and go over those definitions. So if you need just a little refresher on the DI side, don't hesitate to register for that one. That's always good. As you know, we do these every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we know we've got folks all over the country on today. So as I want to echo Andrew's sentiments about joining us on a short holiday week, we wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future. Don't hesitate to give us a call. Be safe out there and enjoy your weekend. Thanks, folks.